Okay, so UVs. Everything in polys has to be UV'd. NURBS, the UVs are simple because every object has to be square. Yeah, so there are several different strategies for getting a good set of UVs. The key thing is you get a dense pack of your UVs, and so that you have as little space as possible between things, okay? And so this one's pretty good. I'm okay at this. I'm not saying I'm great. Anyhow, but especially in games, you have to be really good at getting as much in there as possible because the computer has to calculate on every single frame what all those pixels coming in. So you want to use them wisely and get the best bang for your buck. In media, you also have to worry about that because it's going to slow down your render time if you're bringing in more data than you need. So anyhow, so dense pack is key. All right, and the thing is, you want to start early. If you're going to mirror something, lay out the UVs on half of the object before you mirror it, and then mop up the small mess. But at least you're not going from scratch on the whole object. You've gotten most of the work done when there was only half. Yeah, and the other thing is, like if I grab if I do a smooth on this heart, you see how it does a very good job of sticking, keeping the UVs. So, and it just is a little bit easier to lay out the UVs with less. So you want to, if you're practicing good habits of modeling light and then only smoothing at the end, that's going to make this part a lot easier for you. All right, let's look at a few other files. Let's see. I've loaded a couple up here. Saving that, and oops. Okay, so here's an okay version of a head. And as you see, the back of the head, which is covered, I've made it very small and tossed it off to the side. Here's the neck laid out, probably needs a little more work. This is a decent job. And then my two ears are over there. All right, here's the body all laid out. So I have the main torso in half. I have the front and back hands. All right, and so let's see, select shell, and I move. You see, there's the other hand underneath. So now some things you're allowed to overlap. In games, you commonly do it. If you're going to use fur, you can't have any overlaps anywhere. So you have to do a little research on these to make sure that the rest of your Maya workflow is going to work with whatever strategy you decide to use at this phase of things. Okay, so sometimes you may want to straighten things out so you can draw a straight line in Photoshop. Other times, leaving them with whatever wave they have in them from the model makes sense. So, but this is a pretty good dense pack. It could be a little bit better. I got some free space there and there. So yeah, it's so here's my layout on a car. Maybe I could stack the two sides on top of each other. Or maybe if I'm going to put a number on the side, I'd have to have it by itself. Since in this game you look at the back of the car, I've sewed the back of the car together and worried more about that seam than I did on the front of the car, which is hanging out over here. Okay, so, and like certain things like whatever this is, let's see, where is this guy? Yeah, so like that's the speedometer. That's where there's going to be a lot of detail, so I scaled it up. All right, so some models you want to have everything even. Other models you're going to scale things up, scale things down, and give them more or less texture space depending on what you're trying to do. So, all right. So there's lots of tools out there. The key thing is getting a dense pack. That's the rule of thumb. So you can use HEDIS UV layout, but if you just take what the computer gives you, it's crap and it's not good. Sometimes it's good, but it gets you 85% of the way there, but you do need to get to 100% of the way there. All right, so here's my little Viking piece, and he's okay. I've recently sort of moved him up there and combined a few things. Maybe I can add the sword in at this point to him to get him properly, to get a slightly better pack on things, and be a bit more efficient. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this set. There's the bottom. I've just sort of tucked it into the hole where the shield came out of. Not really super happy with how the body's stretched there. Maybe there's a better solution. Maybe I should fold that in half. I got the cuff here. Maybe that should be stretched out and put on its own somewhere. So anyhow, getting into some of the tools. Okay, so all right. One of my favorite tools is select shell. So I can select one UV and do a select shell. Gives me everything connected. So that's super handy. I can go through and select a set of edges, and I can go to this little scissors tool, which is cut UVs. Then I do a select shell, and bam, I've cut off half of that. So you have to do the selection with the edges. So basically the rule of thumb is you assign to the faces, you cut the edges, and you move around the UVs, which are the green dots, okay? All righty. So that's that guy. If you have something that you need to sew together, and we're going to probably see a lot of this, okay, so I can, put that guy back there by, now this screws up when you've started scaling things. That's the dangerous. But this little guy here is the other main one I use, which is move and sew. So that's moved and sewed those edges for me. And notice I had to select one set of edges. It knows where the corresponding edge is. Okay, so I can grab these guys all down here at the bottom, and then you have these little tools, and so I just give the merge to bottom, and it just says, hey, the bottom UV there, I'm going to align everyone up with that. And so that's super powerful. That's one of my favorite tools to use as well, because it just makes it easier to straighten things out in the UVs, which allows you to draw a nice straight line there in Photoshop. So those are some of the major ones that I use. Let's see, the select shell. You have a mesh warp, okay, which allows you to hold down B, and you can pull and hold down B and change your brush size, and you can pull and push these guys around like that. I don't particularly use that one, but maybe once in a while I find a use for it. Let's see, I just straightened this out the other night, but okay, so then there is, this guy. So this works like the warp in Photoshop, and so as you see, I can very easily grab these markers and pull and push things. I don't use that one much either. Oops. So UVs, select shell, great, and all right. So this is one of my favorite tools, which just rotates the guys around at 45-degree units. I use that one frequently. Okay. Other handy ones, if I go into my the menus here, I like using the relax. So usually with pin borders on. Sometimes I do pin unselected UVs. And so, yeah, 5 iterations, okay. And so that's going to just relax those guys out. All right, so I find that one very handy. I also find the unfold very handy. Eesh. Sometimes not so much. So, it could be worse. So, I could scale that up and probably do something with it. But yeah, so the, how do I turn that guy off? You can see which ones I don't use because, all right, so yeah, the I like to, when I do use the unfold, I find that unfolding something and then relaxing it is very powerful. Okay, so that's another strategy you may want to use. So, don't expect one button just to do the whole thing for you. All right, this is very much a task you want to do as the human brain in the process. Yeah, so those relax, fold, yeah, layouts, not, you see, that's not useful. Yeah, fine, it's neat and tidy, but I have a lot of empty space there, so that's probably why I never use that guy. There is a unitize, which, let's just grab a bunch. No, okay. For some reason that's not working for me. Okay, so there's the normalize. Where was it? Okay, each face separately. Okay, so that that will make it so each one is in the square by itself. Very handy at times if okay, as you see, I only had half the model selected. So to show this, I'm just going to bring up my rendering editors, Hypershade. Grid. Okay, oops. All righty. So there we go. So as you see, that's putting it onto each one individually. Now the problem is if we select this, usually it does work better. As you see, like this guy, it's done it at a bit of an angle. So typically, if I'm going to do this, I'll do something crazy like this where I just grab all the guys there, and if I grab the whole model to start with, this would be giving better results. So there, as you see, it's putting the texture onto each one, each poly there individually. And sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes that can be very powerful. So there's lots of great tools in here. I've definitely found that one useful. But those are the main things that you use in doing your UV layout. The key thing is to make sure that you get a dense pack and you're using that space as efficiently as possible. Yep. So if we just grab this guy and yeah, okay. So if I was now getting into starting strategies, first thing I'm going to do is do an edit, delete by type history. That hopefully will speed up the machine a little bit. I will save this off just so I don't accidentally save over the good UVs I did the other day. So, okay. All right, so getting started on UV. So you've built your model. The UVs are a mess. And basically what you want to do is pick a logical starting point. So maybe that would be cylindrical mapping. And so if I cylindrical map this guy, all right, we have the controllers for the cylindrical map. All right, you can see that's what it's giving me in the UV texture editor there. I have the manipulator tool here selected. It shows up my polycylinder projection over here. And let's see, center is X. That's off a little bit. So unfortunately, a lot of things you have to sort of manually do over here, like your rotates. So that can be problematic at times. All right, so if I needed to rotate this by 33 degrees, I have to do it here, and I have to reselect my tool to really see, oh, okay, there's the angle that it did it at. All right. The other thing that you have to be conscious of is that you don't accidentally get the projection height to 0. If I go to let's get a temporary texture on there so we can sort of see this problem. Okay. All right. So we'll toss that guy on there. So you might recognize that from another lesson. But okay, so I got that on there. If I open up the poly projection, then I can see the circle, the cylindrical map again. If I accidentally get this set to 0, you see what it looks like? It gets all streaky on me. All right, so that's something that happens to intro students all the time. One of these guys goes to 0, and you get a wacky pattern like that. So put that back to 360. Okay, so that one's sort of a pain in the neck, but that's a good starter point. Okay, another place to maybe start is I turn it. Okay. Oh, okay, that's what it did. Sometimes the pen tablet can give you a little too fast for you. All right. Another thing that you can start with, let's see, let's do a create UVs automatic mapping. Okay, so there it's done an automatic map of the whole guy. The problem is, if you look at this, it's like you can't paint that in Photoshop. And it's a very poor use of space. So if the goal is to use as much of this texture space as possible, this does not accomplish it. But it gets me a little bit of a ways down the road. So a lot of times, like the car I just showed you, this is how I started, and then it's going around and doing rotations and that sort of thing. So, all right, so I'm going to Z back. I think the cylindrical is the way to start this, okay, because that's pretty darn good. It's still crap on lots of levels, but it's a good start. Okay, so I'm going to select the faces up here and use the greater than sign on the keyboard to keep selecting and select the rest of the helmet. Okay, that got me most of the way there. So now I will manually go through, grab these guys, and oops. Oh, shoot. Okay, deselected these guys. All right. All right, so that looks pretty good. Then I have to decide, do I do another cylindrical map just for this guy? Or do I do an automatic map on it? I think we'll try create UVs, spherical map. See what that gives me. Oops. All right, and around. All right, and I'm going to lower this guy, so 6. That's looking pretty good. And T on the keyboard. All right, now let's try 8. 8, and that's good. Righty. Image scale seems fine. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so then we'll select a UV on it. So I've popped over here and trying to get my UVs. Okay, so now I got to select them by UVs. It can be stubborn with that once in a while. And so I can just scale that and grab this one guy that's ended up over here and just, you know, bop him into place. Bop these guys over and aha, all right, so that's something I need to sort out in the model. There's something funny there. Okay, so, but that gets me sort of in the range of where I need to go, and, you know, I can just place that. I can place it off to the side until I'm a little further along. So now this down here, this tells me that it's on the bottom, okay, and it didn't know what to do with the cylindrical map. All right, so I just pop down here to the bottom, select, make sure I just get the guys at the bottom. I just do a check there. Pop over to my Create UVs again. And okay, y-axis, planar projection, and voila. So that's giving me these guys. And I can scale it down this way and move it. Okay, so I can move that off to the side and deal with him in a little bit. Alrighty, so then I want to grab my shield over here. Maybe for selection of the shield, the paint tool might be the best thing for me to use. So, you know, because it is a slightly more complex shape. So it's really whatever gets the job done for your selection the fastest. So, you know, don't limit yourself to just the tools there in the UV texture editor because you'll be slowing yourself down. You want to use all the Maya tools to get you where you need to go, which is in this case is my selection here. Okay. And sometimes just manually going and selecting something's fastest. All right, so that's pretty good. Oops, got these guys accidentally. Kill them. Okay, oops, got that guy. So you notice how much I tumble and I check things. All right, so I'm pretty darn happy with that guy. I will then do a another planar projection. Now I have the benefit of having done this before on this particular model, but that's not the usual case. So, okay, it was not. All right, and so you're going to have to try a few things, and you know you may get to a point where you're most of the way through it and go, oh, you know, if I had this other strategy, if I did it this way, it'd be so much better and more efficient. And so you step back, you throw out what you've done, and you reattack it. So it can be very annoying, but the thing is, you have to get it so done correctly so you can texture it well. All right, so there's my planar mapping on the shield, so that guy's taken care of. You know, so now I'll just select these guys on the arm. Let's see. So I'm going to select faces. Okay, and that's not getting me what I want exactly. I'm trying to figure out the most efficient way for me to make my selection here. So maybe if I go through like that, it's not great. And then do a up and down, a greater than, less than selection. if I grab one there. Okay, so now I do another greater than, and that's pretty good. All right, and one more. Great. So here I have the arm now selected out, and I will do a automatic mapping on that. Create automatic. Oops. Ooh, looks like I can move it that way. Oh, that's handy. Okay. Great, let's look in the UVs. All right, so that gives me something good to start with. All right, but notice how in each of these cases, I'm really just not finished when I hit that map button. It's, I'm really assuming I'm going to go through and manually do these guys. It's just the automatic or the cylindrical gets me, most of the way there, so I can then do this sort of work. And yeah, that's laying out UVs. Those are your basic tools, the basic ones that I use of the planar, cylindrical, automatic mapping. Once in a while the spherical, I rarely use that, even though I used it in this case. And you just, you lay them out flat, you think about how you're going to want to paint them in Photoshop. If I take this shield, select UV, select shell, maybe in Photoshop I'm going to want a straight line right there at the top. So, I'll flatten that out. And so I just flatten that sets of UVs out, makes it really easy for me to draw that straight line instead of trying to make something look straight along a curve in a digital realm. It's sort of nuts. But yeah, it's just that sort of work. And then it's a puzzle of taking those pieces that you've put together in a logical format and scaling them and rotating them so that you use 100% of the 0 to 1 space. Okay, if you're wondering why it goes from 0 to 1 always, is that way if you decide, gee, my 1024 map is slowing the rendering down or it's slowing the game down, I need to down res to 512 map or 256 map. You down res it, it maps up accurately with your UVs, and you have to go around and double check your edges. But okay, so that's